To say that Kathleen Kennedy is part of the movie-making business for a long time is an understatement. She has a career that stretches for decades and has participated in the creation of over 60 films. On paper, she's one of the most successful producers in Hollywood, being surpassed only by Steven Spielberg and Kevin Feige. She's been credited as an associate producer, and executive producer on movies such as E.T. the Extraterrestrial, Jurassic Park, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, The Goonies, Back to the Future Part 2, and many more. So an experienced producer of her caliber seemed like the logical choice when she was handpicked by George Lucas to be the new head of Lucasfilm after the Disney buyout of the Star Wars franchise. And a lot of fans reacted positively to her appointment, especially when she made it clear in front of George Lucas no less that she had every intention to safeguard the Star Wars legacy and continue George's vision. A promise that was soon to be broken. One of the first actions of Disney Lucasfilm, now firmly under Kathleen Kennedy's control, was to delete over 30 years of Star Wars canon by removing the extended universe, much to the dismay of a lot of fans. However, they did keep it around under the tag of Legends so they can still profit off of it, without remaining bound by it. The decision made sense from a business standpoint, as Star Wars canon was firmly established, especially leading to and from the original two trilogies. And just like that, Star Wars canon was left with a gaping hole where decades of stories used to be, and fans were left eagerly waiting to see what Kathleen Kennedy's Lucasfilm would do to fill that void. From this point on, it looked like Kathleen Kennedy was going to be unstoppable. Not only was she handed the keys to one of the biggest, if not the biggest movie franchises of all time, she had a dedicated fan base with a lot of money ready to go. And if things were to be judged by The Force Awakens' box office, it looked like Disney's investment was about to pay off big time. However, by that time, some of the warning signs had already started to show, and no amount of goodwill or nostalgia was enough to prevent what was about to happen. The release of The Last Jedi split the Star Wars fandom in half. Add to that the gloating and downright antagonistic behavior of some Lucasfilm employees towards the fandom, constant attacks from the mainstream access media, Kathleen Kennedy's clear push for identity politics, and a lot of people who were tired of getting labeled every buzzword in the book for simply asking questions or not liking the new direction the Star Wars was heading in, and a lot of people simply chose to walk away, taking with them their hard-earned money. At this point, it was quite clear that Kathleen Kennedy had an axe to grind, an agenda to push, and she had surrounded herself with like-minded individuals, making sure that her power was absolute. It was also clear that the direction that Kennedy was pushing Star Wars and the people she had surrounded herself with, however, were not up to the task. And then something happened that no one expected. After rumors of a very troubled production and a lot of reshoots mandated by Kennedy herself, Solo, a Star Wars story, became the first movie in the Star Wars franchise to lose money. And despite what some may call a box office success, The Rise of Skywalker did not live up to financial expectations. Combine that with subpar products like Star Wars Resistance, the all but failed launch of the High Republic that is supposed to replace a large portion of the missing extended universe with diversity, more diversity, and dinosaurs, dwindling merchandise sales, something that the Star Wars brand used to excel at, the antagonistic behavior towards fans, and the push for identity politics, and you get irreparable damage to the Star Wars brand. As it turns out, Kathleen Kennedy's direction, leadership, and decision-making had cost her employers potential billions in lost revenue. And that didn't go unnoticed by Disney, who brought in people like Jon Favreau to prevent the ship from sinking any further. And despite heavy doses of skepticism, Jon Favreau managed to plug some of the leaks and turn the ship around. Somewhat. Despite the rumors of a troubled production and Lucasfilm being split into two camps, the George Lucas Star Wars loyalists and the Kathleen Kennedy faction, the Mandalorians returned to basics, and the introduction of characters such as Cara Dune and Grogu, which the Star Wars fanbase lovingly called Baby Yoda, managed to bring a positive light back to Star Wars once again. And all of that must have infuriated Kathleen Kennedy, because it not only made her look bad, but it showed that the direction she had in mind for Star Wars wasn't the one that the fans wanted. And if the dwindling popularity of the franchise and the poor reception of her approach didn't prove that, the overwhelmingly positive reaction to the return of Luke Skywalker, even if it was only for a few minutes, did. You You see, not only had Kathleen Kennedy denied the Star Wars fandom the reunion between Han, Luke, and Leia, She also approved the humiliation and destruction of Luke Skywalker, a pop culture icon and fan favorite. Even Mark Hamill himself, who is no doubt contractually obligated not to speak badly about Star Wars, was livid, and it was visible. So much so that he made multiple hints publicly and stated that he wasn't happy with the direction the character was going, saying that The Last Jedi's version of Luke Skywalker isn't his Luke, but is instead Luke's cousin, Jake. And the return of Luke wasn't the only problem. Gina Carano's Cara Dune quickly became a fan-favorite character, and Gina Carano herself became a problem when she didn't want to bend the knee to the outraged Twitter mob, and she refused to play ball with identity politics. And her very presence was exposing the double standards and massive hypocrisy of Disney Lucasfilm. Because despite all the bravado, consistent calls for more women in Star Wars and saying that the Force is female, no one stood up to defend Carano when she was systematically bullied, harassed, and attacked for months on Twitter. And her firing was the final straw for a lot of fans. It was crystal clear that the reasons given were nothing but an excuse to get rid of Carano, and the way in which it was done was unprofessional, to say the least. It was also infuriating that Disney Lucasfilm did not judge all of its employees by the same standards, and they had in fact, shortly prior to Carano's firing, openly defended the racist Christina Ariel. And as if that wasn't bad enough, Gina Carano wasn't informed, and she instead learned from social media. And as if to intentionally display the hypocrisy and lack of self-awareness, a few days later Kathleen Kennedy appeared in a video on the Oscars channel to talk about important women in the industry. The channel, that has over 1.9 million subscribers, rarely gathers over a few thousand views per video. However, the Kathleen Kennedy video quickly picked up traction, and it was ratioed savagely by disgruntled fans. And in another, ever so greater display of hypocrisy, the video's comment section and like-to-dislike ratio was turned off. On a side note, some time ago a clip of Steven Spielberg describing Kathleen Kennedy surfaced, and it doesn't paint her in a good light at all.
I remember Kathy came into the room with her steno pad and her pencil, and she was horrible at taking notes, and she was terrible at, she didn't really know how to do it very well. But what she did know how to do was interrupt somebody in mid-sentence. We'd be pitching ideas back and forth, and Kathy, who's supposed to be writing these ideas down, suddenly put her pencil down and would say something like, "And what if he didn't get the girl, but instead he got the dog?"
Taking Kathleen Kennedy's performance into account and her achievement of running Star Wars into the ground, one might come to the conclusion that instead of a powerful, capable Hollywood producer, she's an overrated secretary who managed to fail upwards until she became head honcho at Lucasfilm. After all, she did say that making Star Wars movies is a hard nut to crack because Star Wars doesn't have 800-page novels, comic books, and source material. And whatever her legacy might have been, she will now be remembered as the woman who helped tarnish the Star Wars brand, as she clearly wasn't up to the task. Let me know your thoughts about Kathleen Kennedy, Disney Lucasfilm, and Disney Star Wars in the comment section, and I'll see you around.